I'm Coach Ren, and this is Technique Deep Dive, Swing Edition. Of all the kettlebell exercises out there, the swing is the one that's most recognized by people. I used to work at a large sporting goods store, and I worked in the fitness section, of course, and when everybody would see the kettlebells, they'd go over and just start swinging them around. So people have seen it in some capacity. Now, the kettlebell swing, why would you want to do it? Well, the swing is great because it's a ballistic exercise. It trains power, your ability to move quickly, to produce force rapidly, and to absorb force. So for example, if we were to trip over a tree root when you're hiking outside or something, you trip, it's going to help train you to react quickly to tripping, and it's also going to help teach your body to absorb the forces that you have to when you land from a jump or from tripping or from anything that you can think of. So learning to absorb and then also redirect force is very important for staying healthy, staying upright, and avoiding falls. And it also has a wide range of benefits as well. So what you'll commonly hear people in the kettlebell community say is it's called the what the hell effect. When you do a lot of swings or Turkish get-ups or, those two in particular, there's a lot of carryover to other things that you wouldn't have expected. Like, for example, improved running times or improvements in your chin-up training and so forth. So there's a lot of different things you can benefit from doing just a couple of basic kettlebell exercises. If you're enjoying my content, please hit that like button and subscribe for future videos. What is a swing? A swing is a hip hinge exercise. So other exercises that would be in this classification would be deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, single leg deadlifts. It's just a faster, more explosive hip hinge, but we're still predominantly moving through the hips. So instead of squatting where I would bend my knees a lot and the hips also work in synergy with them, I'm going to predominantly bend at my hips, the knees unlock, but I'm really loading and stretching the muscles of the back of my legs, the glutes, the hamstrings, before I then explode forward. So you're going through a lot of hip flexion and hip extension in a very short period of time. So, and it's also a ballistic, as I said before, it's explosive. So we're training power. As we get older, we lose our ability to move quickly, to explode, and we want to keep that. As I explained earlier, if you want to avoid falls, if you want to be able to react and respond quickly in some sort of maybe emergency situation, this can be extremely helpful. So it's great because it's like jumping without leaving the ground. To learn how to hip hinge properly, which is the most basic thing that you need to know to do a proper kettlebell swing, we're going to start off with a kettlebell deadlift. I'm going to stand about 6 inches to a foot away from a wall. Now I got a kettlebell, might be hard to see, but it's between my heels. So I have to really sit back and reach back for the kettlebell. And what this is going to teach me is to move through my hips. My butt must touch the wall when I get to the bottom, and I'm able to grab the bell, but my butt is also just barely touching. Notice the straight back, and then as I come up, I drive my hips through. I stand up tall before hinging back, reaching back for the wall with my butt, and you may feel a little bit of a stretch in your hamstrings when you do this. So I get a few reps in, maybe as much as 8 to 10. I didn't touch the wall that time. I got to do better. Sit my hips back and notice the knees. The knees do bend, but it's not as much as it would be in a squat. So that's the hip hinge. The wall gives you feedback so that you know if you're using your hips or not. So I'm not just bending forward, I'm sitting back. I'm karate chopping my hips back, and I'm leaning forward. The knees bend a bit, but you can see the dominance of the hip joint in this movement. This is a lot slower, but it's a great way to start learning the fundamentals of hinging. Next step is to learn the hike pass. This is where the kettlebell starts. This is where you start the swing. So after you've mastered hip hinging and maybe done a bunch of kettlebell deadlifts to get really comfortable with that, this could take anywhere from, a few minutes to several weeks or more if you've never really done much for training at all. But now to start the kettlebell swing, there's probably different viewpoints of this. I always like to start the swing with the bell on the floor. So what we're going to learn is the hike pass. So you're going to line up a foot behind the kettlebell. Feet are going to be a little wider than your shoulders with your toes pointing out. This is going to give room for the kettlebell to pass between the legs when you're actually doing the swing. So the hike pass starts in the hinge position at the bottom. So my hips are up, my chest is up, and my hands grab the handle. Notice how I tip the kettlebell onto its edge so it forms an extension of my arms. This is a good solid position to start from. Chest is up. I'm already feeling a stretch in my hamstrings a bit here. And I lock my lats in. I squeeze my lats by driving my shoulders down toward my hips. And that's going to help me with the hike pass. So it's like you're a center in football. If you're familiar with football at all, the center grabs the ball, hikes it between their legs. So I'm going to hike the bell back and then set it right back on the floor. So by squeezing my lats, it allows me to do this more aggressively. So I hike it, set it down. So this isn't just like a lazy river type thing. Now you're going to really rip it back by squeezing the lats. So, and if you swing it up and it touches your butt, you're doing it right. Let's try a couple more. So notice another thing. I keep my torso low when I do this. It's going to be really tempting when you do the hike pass to stand up. Right, try to extend your knees. Avoid that urge. Keep your body tight, keep it low, and that's how you will start the swing. One of the harder parts to learn with the kettlebell swing is properly timing the hip drive or the extension of the hips. The movement of the bell is produced by the hips. Your arms have nothing to do with this other than the fact that they hold on to the bell. That's it. The hips drive it up, and then gravity does the work on the way down. To get a better visual, let's take a look at the swing in slow motion. Notice in this first clip, the hips fully extend well before the kettlebell reaches the top. You may also notice how the bell seems to float at the top of the swing. Contrast this with these next swings, and you'll see the hips not fully extend until the bell reaches the very top of the motion. It also looks like I'm using my arms to lift the weight instead of it floating at the top. In order to learn proper timing, we're going to do a towel swing, wrapping a towel around the handle, and this is going to extend the distance between your hands and the kettlebell. And it's going to force you to time your hip drive properly. So I'm going to take a towel, I'm going to wrap it around the handle of the bell. Now with this greater distance, and this is awkward in itself, I'm going to be able to time my swing better. See how my hips drive first, and then the bell follows. You just want to be careful, because again, this is a different, this pulls on you more, and so it's going to feel awkward. It might slide around with the towel. The handle might slide up and down it a little bit, but if you can get this down, it really helps to teach you the timing of the hip extension. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but an improper start is one of the most common things I see. A lot of people will start right over the bell, and they'll either attempt to do a hike pass from there, and this just doesn't give you enough of a runway, so to speak, to really get a good aggressive hike pass to get the swing started from number one. This is why I don't like to just pick it up and then do a few half swings before I really get it started. So start with it on the floor, do the hike pass, and you won't have to waste your time with half swings to get the momentum going. All right. So yeah, don't stand right over it and just pick it up. And also don't try to do your hike pass from this position. Next thing I see is people swinging the bell too low. So again, you want to keep the kettlebell above the knees. So think about this as the triangle. You want to keep the kettlebell in the triangle. You don't want to swing down here or at your knees. Again, if it touches your butt when you're coming back, you're doing it right. It doesn't have to, but that's an indicator that you're doing it correctly. So I hike it back, it goes up into the triangle, and then every subsequent rep, it also stays there, as opposed to swinging down close to the floor or below your knees. What you may also notice is that the motion, the arc of the kettlebell is a lot longer when you do it improperly. So if I swing it down by my shins, you'll see the bell has to travel a lot further. And it's sloppy looking. It doesn't look good. But if I keep it in the triangle, you can see it's much tighter and more efficient that way. Safer on the back as well. The most common issue I see with people that maybe have never had any training whatsoever with kettlebells or just don't know what the swing actually is when people start to use their arms. They turn it into a really fast front raise and more of a squat than a hinge. So you might see someone do something to the effect of this atrocity. So it's very clear when somebody's using the arms, at least to me, at least to somebody that's seen good swings and performed decent swings. When somebody uses their arms, it's very obvious. So a more subtle but still noticeable arm swing would be this. You can kind of see how I'm really muscling it up, and some people will even slow it down on the way down. They'll try to really control it all the way through. There's a lot of times where I tell people to slow things down, control the movements. This is not one of those. This is like a jump. It's meant to be explosive. It's a ballistic exercise. So again, keep it tight, and you can see how the bell floats up. I'm not using my arms at all. The momentum carries the bell up. When it comes to finishing the swing at the top, your body should be in a straight line. One of the things a lot of people do by accident is they hyperextend their back. They're using their erectors too much to produce the hip or spine extension to get the bell up. We want to think about using the glutes and the hamstrings, much bigger muscles that can produce a lot more force. So you might see someone do this, right? Or you might do this yourself. So at the top, I'm really arched. I'm leaning back. What I want to be doing instead is a standing plank. All my joints are stacked. I'm straight up and the bell floats. So I form a good foundation here. The bell is always trying to pull you this way. We want to avoid that. Speaking of stacked joints and a standing plank, one of the other issues I commonly see is people keeping their knees soft with the kettlebell. Now, this is common practice with people that do what's called a soft style swing or kettlebell sport style swing. They'll keep their knees softer because they're often doing really high volume, lots of reps. But with a hard style swing where you're producing as much power as you can, you're going to lock your knees and hips in a straight line at the top. So I hike it back, I drive my hips, but I also, at the last second, I lock my knees. So I should feel some tension in my quads and glutes at the top. Tight, tight, core tight. Talk about some swing variations. First up on the list is single arm swings. This changes things quite a bit. With the two-handed swing, you're able to produce more power and use heavier weights, which is great, especially if you're somebody that's trying to increase their strength, in particular on their deadlift. Heavy swings have been known to help improve the lockout of your deadlift or finishing at the top. So that can be very useful in your accessory work. For the single arm swing now, we're going to be hitting more of the core and working on posture. So the single arm swing, the bell is trying to pull you forward, just like in the two-handed swing, but now I have to work extra hard to keep my shoulders square, maintain symmetry and balance in my body. So when I start from the beginning, the hike pass, I'm going to have the bell offset to the side. So if I'm going to do a left-handed swing, the bell is off to my left slightly, and I'm going to grab it with that hand. Now, the big important thing is when you set up, upon setting up, you're going to square your shoulders. Other hand is up at the face. And as I swing, I'm going to use my free arm as well. I'm going to throw it back and forth. Some people like to go up to this on guard position like you're boxing. Other people like to swing it forward like you have a second bell in your hand. So either one is fine. All right, so chest is up, lat is tight, everything's the same. Make sure that shoulder's pulled in. And when I hike it back, I'm going to aim to touch my forearm to that thigh. Stay square. And all the same rules apply that we've talked about with the two-handed swing. The dead swing. This one is great if you're trying to learn how to properly do the hike pass and get a great first swing. And also if you're a masochist. So this is a difficult one, needless to say. So I start from the floor and then I end back on the floor before repeating. I tend to do lower reps with this. Lock in my lats, chest up, get a good hike pass, hip snap, bring it back, set it on the floor once again. Each time you come down, reset your body, lats and abs tight. Once again, all the same rules apply as we talked about before. Let's get a little more fancy. Building off from the single arm swing, we're going to do what's called a swing switch, which means literally what you think it does. I'm going to switch hands mid-air. So this is going to require me to let go of the bell at the apex of the swing and grab it out of the air with the other arm. Same rules apply as they do with the single arm swing. You want to maintain square shoulders, and you're going to have to focus here. So don't do this until you've mastered the regular swing, the two-handed swing, and the single arm swing. Then you can try juggling the kettlebell around in the air. So square the shoulders, make sure that bell's set off to the side, get a good hike pass, up, set it down just the normal way you would. It may have been hard to see, but what I like to do is when I get to the top, I let go and I slide my other hand over and grab the bell in the air like so. Never do I bend my arms or try to make any sort of crazy adjustments. I simply grab, I pluck it out of the air, keep my hands close each time I do the swing. If at any point you miss grabbing the bell, let it go. Don't try to grab it a second time. Just let it fall to the floor without smashing your toes and grab it. Try again. Now we move on to the double swing. So 2 kettlebells now. You're obviously going to need to be careful about what weights you pick. This is a great way to add extra weight if you don't have any real heavy kettlebells. I got a couple of 25s right here. So start lighter than you might otherwise do just because this is a different variation. It has a different feel. So it might take a set or two to adjust to this. So I have a slightly wider stance, but beyond that, everything else stays the same. Wider stance, chest up, engage the lats. We hike them back, and they swing together. This is going to require some more power, and you'll notice that pretty quick in order to get them to about the same height, around the height of your shoulders or chest. It's going to require more power because of the added weight. But again, great way to increase weight if you're trying to build more strength. Now, the swing is the foundation for some other common and fun kettlebell movements, such as the clean and the snatch. I'm not going to touch on these too much, but I just wanted to show you how the swing leads to these more advanced maneuvers. Once you've mastered the single arm swing, the two-handed swing, maybe some of the others, practice some of these. They can be a little more challenging in their own right. So the clean in particular, I had a lot of trouble with myself. So we start off the same way, square the shoulders, we perform a hike pass, and the bell's gonna stay in tight to my body, and I catch it at my shoulder. It's against the back of my arm. My body is locked at the top of a swing, that standing plank we talked about earlier. When I come down, I drive my arm back, catch it with my hips. So as I'm hiking, I hike back, and as I snap my hips, instead of the bell floating in front of me, it stays in tight and it floats up to this position. So this is very tricky because it's a very small arc, like the swing has an arc. This too has a very small one. So it requires a lot of practice doing cleans, standing in front of a wall. Helps because it doesn't allow you to come out and in. Finally, we have the kettlebell snatch. So the swing is commonly referred to as the center of the kettlebell universe. It's the base for many different things. And it's also has that what the hell effect where it affects a lot of other things you wouldn't think about, like we talked about earlier. Running times, chin-up strength, deadlifts. So the snatch takes things to the next level. You have to produce more power because now the bell is going to travel about twice the distance, all the way over your head. So the swing is the foundation. Get into my single arm swing position, square the shoulders, chest is up, perform a hike pass, hip snap, and I catch the bell over my head. It's a more challenging maneuver. When I got my certification, I had to do 100 of those in 5 minutes or less. And it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. But thankfully was able to do it thanks to some hard training over several months. So the clean and the snatch, definitely leave those for later on. Perform and perfect the swing over a period of time before you start trying any of those. And I would definitely highly recommend finding yourself a kettlebell coach in your area to train you in person, especially for those last two. Thanks for watching. Please again hit that subscribe button, click the like button if you enjoy my content, and check me out on Facebook at Coach Ren FTS and Fortitude Training Systems on Facebook. Also, please check out my blog at fortitudetrainingsystems.net.